wanting to hear the end of it. It's lovely to see you all this morning. There's lots of people saying hello from a very dull, and then it's kind of like insert name of place. I don't think the weather's very great anywhere today. I'm also thinking as I'm saying this, that every time we start these masterclasses, we start talking about the weather. We're so very British, aren't we? But hopefully, whatever the weather's like, this will brighten up your day today. There's 6 of our Leadership for Personalised Care masterclasses, and it's absolutely brilliant to see so many of you that have joined us this morning. I'm going to hand over to Christy now, who you've met before, and she's going to be our host for today. And I will see you in a little while.
Thanks, Catherine. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Sure
Good
can.
morning. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. And something just caught my eye in the chat. And Anthony says, morning all, it's grey in links, but I'm feeling awesome. So that's good. I'm glad you're feeling awesome. So welcome, as Catherine said, relax, make yourself comfortable. We're together till 11. But as we know, when we're all together, time will fly, won't it? So we've got a great session for you today. We've got a combination of listening, talking and typing. So I think that probably is the perfect combination to keep us all engaged. If you go to the next slide, please, that would be fabulous. Thank you so much. So you'll recognise this slide now. This is just to remind you where you are in your Leadership for Personalised Care journey. So this is our 6th masterclass. How has that happened? And so the focus is on collaborative leadership for personalised care. And this is just to kind of highlight to you where we've come from. So we started off looking at an introduction to leadership in personalised care, didn't we? And then we moved into looking at personalised care in a complex system. And so the next module is coming up soon, and we'll give you some more information about that as it emerges. So just a reminder that you've also got our YouTube channel, so you can have a look at all of our recordings if you haven't already, or you can watch them again if you're so inclined. Those of you that have signed up for Action Learning Sets will be seeing you for the 2nd set next week on the 10th. And the other thing that is a bit hot off the press is that we've got a co-production offer for you around it's leadership and co-production. So that will be coming out soon. So please do keep an eye out for our newsletters. That's how we communicate with you. And Catherine and I have been saying this week that it just feels like this incredible community that we're building. So it's just an absolute delight to have you part of it. Thank you. And this is the module 3 booklet. So you should have all had this, and this will enable you to delve deeper into some of the masterclasses, and it complements them. And so in this, you may know already, we've got a mixture of links to videos and some further reading for you as well. So do take a look at that in your own time. Thank you. Okay. So this is our team today. There's quite a few of us. So there's me, Christy Adams, and I'm hosting. I recognise so many of you. It's lovely to be with you. You've heard from Catherine. We've got some fabulous keynote speakers. So we've got Kirit Mistry and Dr. Mark Spencer. We've got Rosie, who is who you know, she's sort of does everything. I don't really know, she just sort of waves a magic wand and stuff happens. We've got Molly, who also waves a magic wand, but she's particularly on slides and music today. We've got lovely Lindsay and Julie, who are doing some some feedback from the chat. We've got monitors of the chat. We've got Simon and we've got Paul. We've got Gaynor, who is our incredibly important timekeeper. She sends us little messages to keep us on track. And we've got Amy and we've got Karen, who are also going to be facilitating today. So we're all here to serve you. Thank you. Okay, so you'll know this because we've done this before, haven't we? So let's just remind ourselves of how we're going to work together. So we are recording the session, but we don't record the group discussions because we need to respect that that's a safe space for you to share and learn. We are entering into this learning space together, aren't we? And it's really important that you all get what you need from it. And so we talk here about psychological safety. So we do have a shared responsibility for each other's psychological safety and learning, and also as well as our own. So this includes respecting confidentiality. So please, if you hear something that you know, somebody's sharing with you in trust, please don't share that. I know I don't need to say this stuff because you're all grown-ups, but it is good that we just contract with each other like this. We're using the chat for all the communication. Please don't worry about spelling mistakes. I've seen some wonderful spelling mistakes that have caused much smiles and laughter. So please type away, don't worry, no one's judging you. The chat's being monitored by our team, as I said. So if you've got any questions at all, please pop them in the chat box and somebody will get back to you. If you've got any tech issues, please put that in the chat and Molly, Lindsay or Rosie will help you. We've had a few kind of tech gremlins ourselves this morning, so please bear with us. And if you can't hear us or see us at any point or can't see the slides, please do let us know. I guess this next bit's quite self-explanatory, isn't it? You get out what you put in, but it is true. It's true about everything in life, isn't it? So please do get involved in the chat. You're all a really interactive, engaging bunch. I know that. So keep your cameras on in group discussions. It is really important that people feel like they're having a human conversation with somebody that they can see. So please do keep your cameras on. So you might not realise this, but you have so much ability to make good things happen and make people's lives better. We know that you've got that in you, and that's why you're here. So please use this opportunity to listen, to be curious, to test things out, to ask some questions you might not normally ask, think about things in a different way and really put yourself forward, because I can promise you that everybody else in this space, including all of us tutors and team, are right beside you. So self-awareness is your leadership superpower, and leadership development does start with you. So be you, be your best you today. Please stay for the whole session if you can. We are all on this journey together, and you will get the benefits from it if you protect this time. So we've got until 11, and if you could stay in the room, that would be fabulous. Okay, it's really important to me that I know that you've all signed up to this, because that's how we're going to get the best from this session. So would you mind please just popping I consent in the chat box so that I know that we're all working in the way that we want to. Wow, thank you so much. That's lovely. Maybe some of you were poised ready to do that because you know that that's what we always ask you to do. Thanks. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the agenda and the flow for today. So we've done some welcome and introductions. I'm going to hand over in a moment to Catherine, and she's going to have a conversation with Mark Spencer, Dr. Mark Spencer and Kirit Mistry. Then what we will do is have an opportunity to go into groups, random groups, to have a discussion, to think about what that meant for us as leaders. And then we'll regroup, come back together and do some final words and have a think about what next. Okay, so we want to hear from you. So this is the first proper opportunity to share. So in the chat, can you please tell us one thing that you took away from the last session, if you attended it, or if you didn't, if you read the module booklet, module 2 booklet. So what have you taken away? I'll give you a moment to type, please. Julie and Lindsay, as these messages come through, if you could keep an eye out and pick up any themes, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, so we've got a first comment in, don't be afraid and listen to others. And I just think that's really important for any leadership, is to be brave. So that's great. There's another one saying the creativity is utilising, I think it was the GP surgery. Yeah, the champions in the GP surgery was another one. People need people, not pills.
More so than ever.
We've got seek to understand, no ideas should be off limits, and we can't do everything ourselves.
There's one from Sharon, do something small at first and build on it. You know, so there is something about just getting started and letting things grow. And not letting red tape discourage you. Be brave. Yeah, so there's a pretty much a theme about being brave and actually doing, actually taking that step to do, taking that step forward, Linda's just said.
Yeah.
We've got listen to people. That's come through quite a few times. It's so important. It's such a simple thing to do, but it really is vital.
Yeah, and Anthony's just said about, you know, seeing patients as people. You know, so there was a big theme about friends, not foes. and having that mentality around people that we support.
Great, thank you so much. And I just saw something in there, it's saying it's all very human, and yeah, I guess that's what we're all about, isn't it? Otherwise we wouldn't be here. We're all about being human and being together. Thank you so much, that's really helpful. Okay, next question please. What are you hoping for today? So what do you want to get from this session? Tell us. We'll cross our fingers that that's what we're going to deliver. Jeffrey's just reminding us in there that 40 to 45% of patients have a non-clinical social need. It's really powerful when you hear it like that, isn't it? So what have we got? I can see people are looking for inspiration. What else have we got, Lindsay and Julie?
So we've got how to collaborate without it being tokenistic, which I think is really important. So watch out for that co-production lab for that issue as well. People wanting to just carry on building their own learning and having that space to do that.
Again, collaboration, that's coming through strongly. Hearing stories from others. And there was a really nice comment about working on your toolkit, so gaining your skills and developing.
Yeah, and more on collaboration, how to remove the barriers and hearing from other people and peers to really support that and gain some energy from that.
Yeah, fantastic. And I can see the words time and space flashing up there as well. So yes, we're going to create all those things for you today. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Right, now we're going to be asking you some questions around how collaborative you think you are as a leader, and also a bit more about what you want for today. So this is where it gets really techie, and I have to sit back and hand over to Molly. Molly, would you mind telling us what we're going to be doing now, please? Thank you.
Of course. So no one worry, it's not too techie, but I'm going to share a slide right now. And so 1 second. Okay, so if everyone could either take their phone and scan this little code or go to menti.com and put in the code at the top there that you can see. Or Rosie is also putting a link in the chat. So access through one of these methods and it will pop up with, you should see this screen for a code, and I will then click through to the questions. Don't worry if it doesn't work for you, that's absolutely fine. You will still see the questions and feel free to put them in the chat, put your answers in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the questions. Christy, the tech part is done.
Okay.
If anyone's in trouble, please do put in the chat and we'll help you out.
Thanks, Molly. I couldn't quite find my words to describe what you just did, so thanks for stepping in there. Okay, so what will we see now, Molly?
So now we should see the first question.
Okay, so this is the first question that you're being asked. How collaborative would you say you are as a leader? Where 1 is low and 10 is high. And there we go, the wonders of technology. Okay. So I guess it changes while people are typing, Molly, and then it just stops, does it?
Yeah, exactly.
So hopefully you can all see this slide, slowing down a little bit now. So what can we see? We can see that 1% of you think that you are a 10, and most of you think that you're about a 7 or an 8. Now that may be because you are very modest and you don't want to admit that you're actually a really collaborative leader. Maybe you're just, you know, being really honest about where you are. Oh look, we've got 7 and 8, it's about equal now. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Molly. What happens now?
There's a second question.
Thank you. And we've got some
7,
numbers.
8, 9s in the chat as well, Christy. So people who are struggling to get onto it, by all means, just put it in the chat and I'll read out. So again, that sort of 7, 8 level seems to be quite current in the chat as well.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Okay, so what areas of your collaborative style or practice do you need to work on? So this is an opportunity for you to have a think about what matters to you. Let's see what comes up. Oh, letting go. I could feel myself kind of breathe out as I read that, letting go. It's quite powerful to do that sometimes. Draw out people's opinions who are less confident, create the opportunity to collaborate, energy, patience. There's so much coming through here. Listening, delegating. This is great, isn't it? That we can all see each other's thoughts and commitments. Having more confidence. Yeah, that's really important as a leader, isn't it? Finding your confidence, connecting with others, supporting other people to lead and take responsibility. What have we got in the chat, Julie?
In the chat, we've got always the opportunity to learn and grow, and giving people a chance. Give people a chance.
Yeah, and that aligns with what we've got here around empowering others and asking questions and listening to others. Yeah. Giving yourself time to understand. We were having a conversation yesterday about how thinking time shouldn't be a luxury. It's not an add-on to our work life, is it? We have to think in order to do. And so giving yourself time to think is incredibly important and often massively underestimated. Okay, really fabulous. And you can all see for yourselves. And I think we're going to send this out to you as well, perhaps, so you'll be able to have a closer inspection of this afterwards. Thanks, Molly. This is so exciting. oh, we've got one final question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, no, we don't.
Oh, we don't. Oh, you've teased them there. Now they now know what's coming up.
Now
at
you're
the end.
excited.
Thank you so much, Molly. That was brilliantly managed. Thank you. Okay, so we've taken the slides down now. Is that right? Okay. And I am now going to hand over to Catherine, because Catherine is going to have a conversation with Dr. Mark Spencer and with Kirit Mistry. Over to you, Catherine.
Thanks so much for that. And I was taking some notes of some of the things that you're saying. So the idea is that we're going to have this as a bit of a chat, bit like they did last week, a conversation with Mark and Kirit. And I'm going to pose some questions that might have been inspired by some of the things you put in the chat there. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. I'm delighted to be joined by Mark and Kirit today. So Mark Spencer is GP Principal at Mount View Practice in Fleetwood, Lancashire. And he's very modest, but I would say he's undertaken groundbreaking work in connecting communities in Fleetwood and the Fleetwood area, and played a really, really huge leadership role in that community and bringing people together, communities and local agencies, to try and tackle some of the social determinants of health. And also co-founded NHS Collaborate, which is a collaboration of a community of leaders right across primary care. And I think a lot of the work that you've done, Mark, has sort of actually inspired and led to the development of primary care network. So I think it shouldn't go unnoticed that that's now become policy, that way of collaborating between GP practices across the country. And also to introduce Kirit Mistry, who is a friend and colleague, actually a former participant of our national programme. And I know we've got some former participants in the national programme actually on the call today as well, so some of you might recognise Kirit. So Kirit came onto the programme as a citizen leader and has done amazing things both before and since. Amongst many other things, set up the Leicestershire South Asian Diabetes Network and a multitude of other groups, and has been engaging locally, regionally, nationally to try and increase the voice of people in service design delivery, and try and make a real difference to people in his community and the South Asian community. And I think what Kirit shows is that, just like a lot of our speakers who we've had over the programme, is that leadership can come from anywhere and that citizens can make a difference. So you don't need positional power to be able to do something. So welcome, Mark and Kirit. So this module is all about collaborative leadership. And I suppose starting from the beginning then, and going to you first, Mark, what does collaborative leadership mean to you?
Well, firstly, thank you for the introduction. I feel truly humbled by what you've said. A lot of what's happened in Fleetwood, it has been of the residents themselves, and I truly believe that my position as a leader is to create an environment, to create a community where people can do things for themselves, where anybody can become a leader, and I purely define leadership or a leader as somebody that wants to make a difference, and somebody that's brave enough to do something to change the status quo because they're not happy with the status quo. So I think leadership is being persistently dissatisfied with the status quo and being brave enough to want to do something, because anything is better than the situation that we're in now. And we heard some great words written in the chat box and voiced, words, listening and being brave. And what I want to put in is a really, really important four-letter word, and that's hope. And I think personally, leadership is around instilling hope in people that they can make a difference, that they can make a difference to their own lives, to the lives of their families, and to the community itself. So I'll come back to hope in a second once we've heard from Kirit.
Brilliant, thank you. Kirit, what does collaborative leadership mean to you?
Well, thanks again for the opportunity. And firstly, let's start off by, we hear a lot of nonsense around communities, people, patients are hard to reach. So let's break that down firstly, that they're not hard to reach, it's the institutions that are hard to reach. And sometimes it just takes a different approach to reach these people, patients, whoever. So that's the starting point. For me, leadership is from a people point of view, and if you've got the passion, right, which is where I started my journey, because I was really seeing lack of diversity on various forums. I was seeing the doors closing. So in a way, I had to kind of kick those doors down and critically challenge some of the organizations to say that, how are you recruiting these patients, public? How can we assist from the communities? Because you're not reaching us with this information. So for me, the starting point is, as a leader, I've thrived on passion, firstly, and then secondly, it's about again making that difference. Thirdly, it's equality of opportunity, and the final thing for me is collaboration. This is about collaborative leadership, but collaboration, because that's the only way, from a small charity that I've set up, the only way we've been able to grow slowly is by collaborating. It's by getting in with initiatives, with organizations on a local, regional, national level. But finally, I'm a diabetic patient, and when I saw on our local CCG group that there was no diabetes voice, particularly from with Leicester's high South Asian population, it gave me the opportunity to knock on the door and say, where's your patient voice? And luckily, since then, I've been able to help shape various initiatives, and I think that's where I'm going to stop. But I think it's important that if you've got the passion, that will drive you, and then everything else falls into place.
Thank you. So why collaboration particularly, Kirit? You talked a little bit about working together, but can you sort of give us some examples of that kind of collaboration where you've seen that really making a difference?
Sure. So locally, being at the right table at the right time, I was enabled to get a small pot of funding from the CCG to create a South Asian diabetes risk assessors community project. So we kind of knew that the best way to get into various communities who had different language needs and cultural needs was to train people from those communities who would be able to then give us access and reach and then raise awareness of diabetes. So that's kind of how we did it from a local point of view. But then moving on a regional basis, again, it was through the Academic Health Science Network that an opportunity from Rose as part of their patient public involvement group, and I co-chaired that for quite a few years. But again, it was about engaging on their national long-term conditions conferences, and then they kind of highlighted some of the work that we were doing from our South Asian diabetes group. And then finally, nationally, it's just, we've got lots of organizations. So National Voices have created a Voices for Improvement project, and our really brand new initiative that we've just collaborated with the British Association of Physicians of Indian Origin is a patient ambassador COVID project, where we train up patient ambassadors who will be actually sitting at home, waiting for the ICU team to ring them, and then communicate with the families of their loved ones where language and culture is an issue. So I gave 3 examples, but it's been important. We can't do it from a small charity. It's hard to get into those circles of the organizations because we don't have a track record. We're getting a track record, but the doors weren't opening. So collaboration was the key. And now we're actually co-applicants on research projects. We're actually, designing, co-producing lots of initiatives that are culturally appropriate. So it's enabled us to do that.
Brilliant. So I love the idea that you started somewhere, you started local, and it's actually gone national, and amazing things happen, which I guess you didn't know were going to happen when you started. I wonder, Mark, if you can talk about that sort of that local perspective and how things happen that you aren't expecting.
Yeah, I absolutely, and also I think it's important to not define where you want to get to. I think it's absolutely fine just to say where we are is not good enough, and start a journey. If you take forever trying to define where the end point, you'll never take that first step. So it doesn't matter where you go, that first step is so important, because unless you take that first step, you're never going to get anywhere. Well, thinking about local, and I'd like to take you back about 5 years to the start of my journey as a GP. And then I'd been a GP for 25 years. And I used to think, isn't the NHS brilliant? Isn't the NHS fantastic? We've got all these different medicines, we've got all these different treatments, free at the point of use, the envy of the world. So if the NHS is so brilliant, why is life expectancy going down? Why in our most disadvantaged communities are people dying younger, particularly women? That's the first time since the Victorian age that we're dying younger. And I want to talk about a fellow called John, a real man, and because John absolutely changed my thinking about this. And John was only 32, and he was sat in front of me as a patient, and all he really wanted was a sick note, because he had very severe liver disease, which was as a result of intravenous drug using, through which he'd contracted hepatitis C, which really is very bad for your liver. And he'd been drinking very heavily since the age of 12, and had alcohol-related liver disease. And I said something just really stupid to him. Every clinician will say this during their career, and it's such the wrong thing to say. And I said to John, if you don't stop drinking so much, it's going to kill you. And John said to me, Doc, he says, I know you're trying to help, but it's not the fear of dying that worries me. It's the fear of living. And John had no hope that his life was ever going to get any better. And when you've got no hope, then we could prescribe any number of medicines for him. We could do anything to him, and actually it wouldn't make a difference, because all John was doing whatever he could to get through the day, and that was the only thing that was important to him. Tomorrow didn't really matter. It was just getting through the day. So I started on this journey of how do you build hope? How do you create a hopeful community that then collectively can address those real health issues that our community faced? And we put in place just 3 things really. and those three things all begin with the letter C. And the first one is being connected. Human beings are social animals, and the more hopeless we start to feel, we choose then to become self-isolated. We lock ourselves in our homes, we lock ourselves in our bedrooms, we don't communicate. That isolation is really, really bad for our emotional well-being. So connecting people together, and it doesn't matter the setting. It can be a library, it can be a church hall, it can be a community centre, and it can be over befriending groups, tea and cake, whatever it is, connecting people, and during those connected sessions, deeply listening to what matters to people, what really matters to you and your family and your community. So that's connected. The second one is confidence. That's my second letter, C. And we can only become more self-confident by becoming a doer. And if you've got no self-confidence, how can we expect people to start to manage their own health, you know, and self-care and those sorts of things? But a lot of healthcare is around doing to people. You know, take this medicine, take that medicine, have that test, see that consultant, go there, go there, go there, go there. And we patronize people so much that actually we knock their self-confidence. So building self-confidence by people becoming doers is what we've really focused on in this thing called Healthy Fleetwood. And it doesn't really matter what you do. If you do it repetitively every week, whether it's art, whether it's singing, whether it's gardening, running, walking, whatever it is that you do, cooking, the more you do it, the more self-confident you become. And not just in that activity, the more self-confident you become in all activities. And the third letter, C, and the most important one, and this is where collaborative leadership really comes into this, and that word is control. And empowering people, genuinely empowering people to be in control of their own lives, be in control of their own streets, and being in control of their own communities. And yet a lot of people in public service, NHS, local authority, we continually do too. We patronize our communities. We think we know what's best for that community. So we do things to that community because we think we're doing a good deed. But actually, in doing that, we are taking control away from that community. So my job as a leader, I believe, is to try and stop people, well-meaning people, doing things to our community. Everything should come from the residents themselves. Every single thing that happens in my community should be led by the residents, and we should keep asking the question, what matters to you? And then it's for those of us in public service to work collaboratively together as equals to bring that situation to being, and whatever that is. You know, dog fouling is a great one, and you know, when we first met and we first started listening to our residents, it was quite clear that nobody had any pride in our community anymore. That our community had been decimated by unemployment, by loss of fishing, and there was no pride in the community. And our high street looked a mess, and it was full of litter. And the first thing that the residents wanted to do is smarten the place up. So it wasn't, you know, let's ask our local authority to clean the streets up. Actually, let's do it ourselves. Let's become the doers. Let's take control of this situation, and simply going on litter picks and smartening the place up, and smartening back alleys up, and going on beach cleans really generated a sense of pride in our community. And Kirit talks a lot about passion, but where does that energy, how do you sustain that? Because it's really hard to sustain that on your own if you are the only person going on that journey. But if as a leader you can encourage people to go on their own journey, and you support them on their journey, actually that creates energy, and more people will go on that journey with them.
That's brilliant, Mark. Thank you. I suppose what I'm interested in, and there's quite a lot coming through the chat, people really engaging with what you're both saying. How do you take passion and a belief in people doing things for themselves, people having control, the need for connection, that knowledge, but how do you turn that into something happening? So Kira, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what specifically did you do, or some tips that you can give people about if they want to see a change, what are some of those small steps that kind of helped you get going?
Great. So I think Mark already gave a few C's, but I'm going to turn them into E's. And certainly for me, it's been, our kind of journey around engagement is key. Then the next E for me has been about how I had a challenge. I was taking on a role with the organ donation committees at local hospitals, and they said to me, Kirit, we need to increase organ donation awareness within the BAME and the faith communities, but recognizing that these were internal structures. But I said, who are your messengers? And the key messengers were people who had a transplant, who were recipient waiting for that phone call. They were the team that I kind of found from the community through contacts, and then supporting them to train them, and then they were our ambassadors. So they were the right messengers. So where's the energy? That was where the energy was coming from. So my next E was around, you got the experience, you got the engagement, and then you get the energy of people who have got a condition, or somebody who's like, organ donation is quite a taboo and cultural kind of challenging within some faith communities. But we turned it on its head to say, well, what if you or your loved one was in need of an organ? What would you do? Would you take it? And there was only probably one faith community said they wouldn't, but the rest of them predominantly would. Yes, of course we would. So that's where we kind of then engaged with the scholars who were the ones that needed to press those messages out. And finally, I think empowerment has got to be you've got the passion, but then you've got to have a team, and you've got to have people with those lived experiences that will be able to, and all I was doing was really opening these doors, because I knew how to, what's the word, not play the system, but I knew the system, because in my formal early days, I was a drugs and alcohol educator, counsellor, I worked in mental health, so I knew that, with some of the barriers to getting, clinicians to listen, to get organizations to listen, was I had to arm myself with data, with looking at their own data in terms of whether it's, patient data, whether it's equality data. I had to do my research, go to the commissioners to say, really, what are we going to do? And this is how we're going to do it. We were giving them the solutions to say, you've tried it for so many years and it's not working. So let's use, for example, some of our ambassadors, these who can then help get the message out. In terms of, from a diabetes point of view, by setting up the South Asian Diabetes Support Group, it enabled the commissioners to start listening to us, because they knew that in Leicester's South Asian population have, with diabetes. So this was one good way. And finally, I keep going on about it, but if the equality and we're in a right with what's been going on with the whole Black Lives Matters agenda, I think it's an important opportunity that a lot of institutions are actually looking at the spotlight within themselves to see how can we really thrive more, better equality, better engagement. And it's a great time to have this dialogue, and people are willing to change and look at, and all I'm saying is it's not rocket science. What you need to do is, if you're trying to recruit patients from diabetes, then you've got faith networks that you could explore. You could, the community networks, the patient participation groups, And finally, as you said, Mark has been a pioneer around primary care networks. I've just worked in mental health for the last 2 years, and I think that's going to be a real opportunity where primary care networks really embed, some of the challenges around mental health and other conditions, but having us as patients and communities as the voice to work with them, because some primary care networks, the doors are still not very well open. I know it's new in production. So I think that we need leaders like Mark and obviously Catherine yourself within to look at, how patients and communities can better be engaged and embedded within the integrated care systems, and also now with the primary care network, because that's where we're going to see the change and that collaboration going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to come back to a word that was used in the chat box very, very early on in this meeting, and that's listening. Listening is so important, and I don't mean just having an engagement event. Residents are sick of engagement events, of people coming into the community, telling the community that we're here to listen to you, and actually they're here to tell you what they're going to do to you. Yeah. And then they go away and do it, not having listened at all. And residents don't trust public servants that come to listening events and then disappear. They really don't. So listening with the sole intention of understanding is so important, and deeply listening over the long term. So it's not one event. It's not two events. It's not over the next 3 months. It's month in, month out, year in, year out, going back to the same place and continuing with those conversations, because what matters will change over time. And then I think the other thing is, so timescales is really important. This isn't a 1 month, 3 month project. This is a for life listening. And those people in leadership positions, whether it be local authorities, schools, housing, health, we have to deeply listen to our communities. We have to, long term. And that's why I think primary care networks, general practice is in such a good place, because people that work in those institutions, they're there decades and decades and decades. And it's those individual relationships that matter, not the chief executive of Wire Council. Actually, he's called Gary, and Gary is now deeply connected to the residents, and Gary is deeply connected to the other service providers in our community. And the final thing I want to say is let things run at their own pace. Because if we try and push something, if we try and push it as a leader, we're taking that position of authority and that position of control, when actually the community will move at its own pace. And we need to stand back and create that space and create that time where the residents and the community can do this stuff. And that won't happen overnight. Now, what started with litter picking then went into, singing, and then went into cooking, and then went into exercise and well-being. And now our community is genuinely empowered to make the decisions that our local authority used to make. Those decisions are now made by the community, for the community.
That's brilliant, thank you. So there's some stuff in the chat coming out, which people sort of thinking, they completely agree, but they're not quite sure how you make this happen when you are somebody who's tasked with delivering a program. Your funding is in a kind of like has a narrow set of outcomes. And what you're talking about, and I think what we're talking about on this program in general, is actually completely reimagining what it means to be a leader in the public sector and the voluntary sector, a leader for, with, and within communities. So how do we spread that message? I mean, how do you, if you have got targets and deliverables, how do you shift your perspective and so that you can keep your job and keep on doing good work? Anyway, either of you.
Okay, so go on then. Go on. I was just
wanted
going to
pick up
kick
on one
back.
thing. Just wanted to pick up on one thing that Mark said, and then in terms of, there's a lot of mistrust within communities and the NHS professionals, etc. So I think that's where we start in terms of getting people from those communities to actually be better, take up some of the roles to be the kind of connectors, and that's the key. I think that will help to address some of the. We're seeing this with the vaccine agenda as well. So I think the mistrust is one, and then I think we have to take some risks. I'm telling commissioners, right? This one-size-fits-all approach is not working. You've been doing that for many years. Take some risks on some innovative community initiatives that will enable to change the way services are delivered, the way patients get involved, the public get involved. So the risk taking, and we've got to see a long-term commitment to, as Mark already pointed out, this 3 months, 6 months doesn't work. We have to look at a longer-term strategy of funding, initiatives, sustainability, but most importantly, if we're going to see real change, we've got to look at the various local institutions, even national institutions, the makeup of the workforce, the makeup of the decision makers and people who are on board. So we've got to let's take another 10 years, but at least we've got to start having these systems in place to go about asking, to see that real change. And I think that's where we have to go. Yeah. So sorry, Mark, for butting in. Sorry.
No. You're fine, Karen. I was waiting for you. So let's be really clear here. The old ways of working do not work. I keep coming back to that. Life expectancy is going down in our most disadvantaged communities, and COVID is going to make that 10 times worse. So the old bureaucratic, top-down, system-led way of working, it's not going to work. It doesn't work. Marmot published his report 10 years ago about the wider determinants of health, and things have got worse. So all of us as leaders, we need to be brave enough to kick back and say, actually, I'm not doing that. That does not work. I am going to listen to the community. And we've made a big stride forward in these things called primary care networks. Primary care networks are rooted in their communities. So we should be supporting our primary care networks to be the real focus of health delivery in those communities. And we should be supporting the leaders in those primary care networks to work in genuine partnership with the residents. And we should be saying that. And nothing should happen unless it is driven from within the community. So, we're getting ICSs formed at the moment, integrated care systems across geographies of like 2 million people, and the ICSs are already starting to write their strategies. And I'm going, stop, don't. What is the point? Do not do it. You're going to make things worse. We need a real bottom-up approach where the ICS strategy is to listen to every single community and think about what matters to that community. And Kirit is right. Starting point with this is data, and hold that data up as a mirror to decision makers. And let's not think about diseases themselves. Diabetes is important, but actually the consequences of diabetes, like having your leg amputated, that's the important stuff. So hold a mirror up to the commissioners in Blackpool who've got the highest leg amputation rates in the country, and go, so what have you been doing in the last 10 years? What strategy have you had in place? Because it isn't working.
Thank you. That's an impassioned plea for doing something different, and everyone's agreeing with you, by the way. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got, or that old saying. Thank you so much, both of you. I'm going to hand over to Christy, and hopefully people will get a chance to think about what it means for them and how they take this forward in their work through some group discussions in a moment. But thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Can I just have a wave? Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Gosh, I mean, you both just had me hooked on your opening phrases. So Mark, yours was leadership is being persistently dissatisfied with the status quo to be brave enough to do something about it. Yeah, so powerful. And Kirit, yours was, let's be really clear here, it's not the institution, it's not the people and the communities that are hard to reach, it's the institutions. So yeah, and thank you, Catherine. It was really lovely just to see a conversation happen, and I know that we could have watched you for hours and you could have talked for hours, but yeah, I think that key message around hope and pace really came through there as well. So thank you so much. Okay, so now it's your turn to just have an opportunity to talk. So what we're going to do is we're going to put you into randomized breakout rooms. Molly, would you mind just bringing up the slides with the questions on? Thank you so much. Seamless there, lovely. Okay, so these are the questions. We've kept them nice and simple for you. Some simplicity is key, we find. So what have you heard that inspires you? And what do you need to do next as a leader? So you can take a picture of those questions if you want to. We'll pop them in your chat boxes as well. And Molly, on the next slide, we're just going to remind ourselves about how we work together as groups. So you are grown-ups, as I said at the beginning, but it is really important, isn't it, when we work in groups, that we do sort of what we might call contract with each other and create some ground rules and understandings about how we work. So please keep your cameras on and participate as much as possible, and because it does help you and others as well to connect and learn. If we can see each other, we can connect much more powerfully. You may have one of us in the room, you probably will, but if you don't, please just self-organise however you want to. Introduce yourselves to each other, but please be kind of quite succinct about that, because we want you to be able to make the most of the conversation time. Agree the confidentiality between you, your facilitator will help you do that, and just make sure that everybody has a chance to contribute. If you know that you're somebody that is confident and freely talks in groups, maybe say what you need to say and then take a step back in the way that we do in leadership sometime, and just offer the space out to other people. Lovely. Okay, so I know that again, that kind of magic tech thing happened, so I think we're all going to be put into rooms now. Can we go please until 22? Rosie, Molly, whoever brings us back out, that would be wonderful. So we'll see you in your room or back out here in 15 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Good to see you all. It's quite brutal, that, isn't it? Kind of just that end to the breakout session. You can be in mid-conversation and then you arrive back in this big communal space. But welcome back. I hope you had some good conversations and some time and some space to think and to share. So what we're going to do now is just take the opportunity until 5:02, just to kind of hear your thoughts and your reflections on what's inspired you and what do you need to do next as a leader. So what I would really like is for this to be as conversational as possible. So please do use the chat box if you want to, but also if you're feeling brave and inspired enough to share, then please do. So is there anybody that wants to start by verbally sharing what's inspired you and perhaps what do you need to do next as a leader? Anybody want to share with us? If you put your hand up, Rosie's saying that would be really helpful. It's true, because we can't necessarily easily see you all. So you've got the icon, then you can put your hand up, or you can actually put your hand up if that's better. I'm scrolling across. Okay, so I can see. All right, I can see Ian's waving at me. Ian Jones. Good morning, Ian. He needs to be unmuted. The power.
One of the we didn't have much time to speak in our group, but one of the things I've seen in my experience in the system in Cornwall is that we've got a huge cultural shift which has to happen. There's an awful lot of sunk costs in terms of people's skills, their specialisms, their education, and their control to get them to change is difficult. And, you know, trying to get things joined up across the NHS is a nightmare sometimes because of attribution. You know, when you work with a whole person, each specialism is only interested in their specialism, and trying to get them to understand working together in a particular place is very difficult. And we don't really invest very much in that cultural change.
Thank you for sharing that. And so now that's kind of, you've voiced that and verbalized it. What do you feel for you, Ian, is the next thing for you to do personally to start addressing that? He needs to be unmuted. Thank you.
Yeah. So I sit on a number of boards down here. So I'm always constantly engaging other senior people. But when their focus is on cutting £20 million from the budget, it's difficult. So it's perseverance more than anything. You know, not giving up. I've spent 10 years banging my head against the wall, and I think probably only a few paces ahead where I was 10 years ago. But I think it's perseverance to believe, as our speakers, you know, said, to have the hope that it can change, and persevering, and also, I don't like the word empowering, but getting other people to recognise the value of what you're doing and bringing them along with you, so that they're also championing the issues. So you can't do it yourself. It's how you get other people to participate in the change.
Thank you for sharing that, Ian. Thank you so much. Right, I can see a few hands up, but could my lovely team, somebody tell me who to go to next? Joe, is that Joe Crooms? Yes. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, thank you. I suppose one of the conversations we sort of started was inspired by the conversations around this real sense of being comfortable with emergence and not having the end in mind, and really want to sort of, you know, to have that sort of openness when having conversations with our communities, which we're doing, etc. But the bit I'm really struggling with is in order to put things like bids in to get money to support some of these things, you have to have an end in mind, because they want to know what your outcomes are going to be. They want to know, you know, how you're going to measure things. They want to know, you know, X has to equal Y, so you get A. So it's that thing around. So we've just started to think about, you know, going to have to be quite creative with our bids in order to get the money, in order to be able to do the projects, to be able to work with our communities, because unless we can do some form of whole system red tape shift. So I'd be interested to know if anybody's done anything around system shift.
Joe, is that a question for colleagues on the call? Do you want somebody to respond to that? Okay.
If anybody's got anything,
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. Is there anybody that wants to respond to Joe's question? She'd love to hear from you, and so would we. Is there anybody there that I can't see all this, so many of you? Anybody there? Rosie and Lindsay and others that you can see?
Not that I can see.
Okay. All right. Okay, so Joe, maybe
should I come in there, Christy?
Yeah,
because it is really difficult, isn't it? Because it's like this, it's like really, it's very, very simple, but it's also very complex at the same time. I think we all want to see massive system shift, but what I've taken away from all of these masterclasses, and I suppose just bitter experiences, start somewhere and start small, and that actually smaller players, then less powerful people in a system, can shift funders and providers by kind of that collaboration and working together. So by persuading somebody of a vision and to try and loosen up commissioning a little bit, you know, and I have seen that happen in some instances. And there are some quite forward-thinking funders, like the People's Lottery, for example. They're not funding specifics; they're funding the outcome of connecting communities together, and that work is connected to the work that we're doing here, because they work with University of Central Lancashire, who did the Connected Communities programme with the Royal Society of Arts, Manufactures and Commerce, and helped them shape those shape those funding criteria. So I suppose what I'm saying is you can't eat the elephant all at once, but there are bits of it that we can all chip into, and this community of practice and a growing community of practice is also important. So as we, you know, if anybody's got any examples of good practice, that we're finding ways to share those together so that providers can help shape the commissioners. It's not just about trying to sort out the, you know, get the commissioners to change or get the system to change by itself. We have to show them the way and hold people's hands to do it, I think. I'm not sure that helps.
So we'll continue doing what we're doing, which will be creative and then give the evidence as it emerges.
There is so much evidence, though, for this way of working, as opposed to the traditional way of working. It's all out there. And the other thing is looking at person-centered outcomes, what really matters to individuals, and put those as the outcomes in your business cases. And all the evidence says that this way of working is really good for the NHS as well. So when we listened to our residents about what matters to them, not one person said, I know, let's reduce A&E attendances. Not one. But 5 years down the line, our A&E attendances have gone down by 20%. Yeah, things just do. Don't think about the money. Don't. The money will happen. The outcomes will happen.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm just going to check in and see whether we've got anything in the chat that my Julie and my Lindsay, Julie and Lindsay, you want to share, or whether we go to hands up. What do we think?
There was a response to the question that's just been asked about sort of encouraging people to think about general well-being goals rather than specific. So I think it fits in with what Mark was saying, really, that there is some really good sort of personal outcome tools that can be used. So much softer data, but much more personal data to try and put into outcomes of bids and things. So I just thought you'd probably want that response.
Thanks, Julie. And we heard you, Mark, earlier say, and I think your words were, data is to be used to hold the mirror up.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing, one of the things that came out of our group was that almost helping people to recover from lockdown as well. So that's another opportunity and hook to get into this, really, by saying, well, actually, you know, if we can get the community to just have some time to start recovering and getting together and joining together, that might instigate then some of this work and bring in some people together from the communities. And I just thought that was just an interesting little angle on it, really, in view of sort of recovering from the lockdown for people.
Thanks, Julie. So I'm going to take one more question, and then what I would like to do, or not one more question, one more reflection, actually. So the reflection for you is what's inspired you and what do you need to do as a leader? So it would be great if you could share that. And then I'd like to invite Mark and Kirit to have a final word before we close. So I think, Gus, can I see that you've got your hand up there? Good afternoon. Good morning. Good morning. You need to be unmuted. Someone's got to give you the
Rightio,
controls.
I am unmuted. I am a 74-year-old chair of an autism hub, and I was diagnosed at 70. Now, at the moment, I live in West Cheshire, and at the moment, I'm looking at what Mark was talking about the age difference between deprived areas and more wealthy areas. My area where I live is a deprived area, and the life expectancy is 77. But 5 miles away on the other side of Chester, it's 87. I'm trying to get more money spent in the GP practices in the deprived areas, but I think the CCGs won't listen, and the CCG in the area, it's a whole Cheshire CCG. We just merged 4 CCGs into one, and it's even harder now to get at that one CCG than it was to get at the 4 different, one of the 4 different CCGs. So, and this ICS thing is going to make it even more harder to get at the centre for us ordinary patients. I'm, like I say, I'm the chair of an autism hub, and I'm chair of a couple of mental health charities as well, and it's just I just can't get a word in at CCG. I have been invited to the Health and Wellbeing Board later on this month to speak about health inequalities, but that's, yeah.
Thank you, Gus, for being open and for sharing your story. You've got somebody in the chat box that says, Gus, you're really inspiring. So thank you.
Can I just say my chat box hasn't worked right from the first module, so I haven't been able to put anything in the chat box at all.
Oh. The tech gremlins. Okay, well we'll see if we can help you with that. Not now, but another time. So thank you, Gus. I could see Mark nodding there, and I wondered, Mark, whether you wanted to respond to Gus.
I do, and thanks, Gus. Addressing inequalities is a real passion of mine, and it's the reason I get out of bed and go into my place of work every day. That there is a real responsibility for every decision maker, and now that those decisions are being made at ICS level to address inequalities, and as I said before, we need to hold a mirror up to the decision makers and ask them, what are you doing? It's a statutory responsibility in every organisation in the country to address inequalities, and yet everybody's ignored it for the last 10 years. Everybody has. It's a file on a shelf that's never been opened, and all of us need to keep at what are you doing to address inequalities? Why is life expectancy going down in your area? That's what we need to keep asking. And there is something about resources. Resources do need to be reallocated in a different way, but also it's where does the centre of power lie? And I keep coming back to that, empowering our local communities to be the people that makes the decisions about what are the priorities in my community and what are we going to do about it. I can't hear you.
Christy, you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Mark. That was a really powerful note to lead us through into the end. Gus, I could see your thumbs up, so thank you for that. Okay, Kirit, can I ask you, we've got about 4 minutes left of the whole session, so in as few words as possible, what do you want to say?
I think, Gus, just keep doing what you're doing. If you keep at the commissioners, at the institutions, that you'll be visible to them. So just keep writing, keep engaging, and that's for everyone, really. If you get no once, keep persistent, because sooner or later they will give in, because you're offering them a way of engaging with you, and you've got your networks and communities. So all I'm saying is do things differently. Don't try and create new champions, ambassadors, patient reps in your organizations, and that's the way you're going to see the change.
Thank you, Kirit, and thank you, Mark. That was fantastic. We've got some good thumbs up there. Okay, so let's lead us through now till the end. I think we're doing another Menti. Is that right, Molly? Is that where we're heading now?
I don't think we're going to have time for the Menti, Christy. So I wonder if we just use the chat to do the scale of 1 to 10.
Okay, all right then. That's a really good idea. So let me get the questions up then. On a scale of 1 to...
Just can hold his fingers up.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you now to developing your collaborative practice, having heard what you've heard? So if you could pop something in the chat for us, that would be great. How committed are you? We've got 10 from Della, 9 10s. So it's coming through quickly. My maths, as you all know by now, is not my strong point, but I think we're probably averaging a 9. Julie, would you say?
I'd say 9 or 10. Yeah, they're coming in really fast, but certainly a massive difference from the beginning of the session. There's been a shift up to much more confident and energized to do this, which is great.
Because we've got each other and we've got this, haven't we? Okay, and what would be just really good,
and just to say that Gus had a 10, so so any of you were holding your hands up, thank you for that, if you could use that. Thank
you. And it would just be so lovely just to hear the one thing in the chat box that you're going to do next. What is the one practical first or next step you're going to take? Let's see what comes through. Collaborate, hold a mirror up. Share best practice, chip away. Yes, patience, keep chipping away. What else have we got through there, Julie? Lindsay?
We've got listen, inspire others, keep at it.
Keep at it, keep on chipping away, motivate others.
Yeah, fantastic.
I would also encourage people to go and find who are the leaders in your community, because they will not have leader on their badge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you. Okay, you're all busy people with lives to live, so we're going to let you go. Before we do, just to let you know that we will be back in touch very soon. So please check our newsletter and we'll give you some more information about the upcoming masterclasses and a heap of other things too. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you back here again really soon. Thank you so much. Bye from all of us.
Please do fill in the evaluation for us. Rosie will be putting a link to that in the chat. It really helps us tailor it around what you need. Thank you very much, and thanks to all who participated.